Alright, my haul from Powell's, starting on the large side. What I've got here is a Dover edition of Alphonse Mucha Art Nouveau plates. Lovely cover stuff, not a lot to it. Also a best of Aubrey Beardsley. And the last for our really huge books here, a Buck Rogers collection, the original 1920s and 30s stuff. Working our way down in size, a Collected Fantasies of Clark Ashton Smith, Last Hieroglyph. This is volume 5 of 5, I believe. You can actually find these at Barnes & Noble, believe it or not, and Clark Ashton Smith is not a very well-known author these days, although he was one of the big three in Weird Tales back in the day, along with H.P. Lovecraft and Robert E. Howard, who you probably heard of. And speaking of Lovecraft, H.P. Lovecraft's Book of the Supernatural. This actually, I don't think, contains any Lovecraft stories. I think it opens with an essay by him, and then it just goes on to share a whole bunch of stories that he admires. Old horror stuff, the kind that I would actually read. From here, we get a bit of a departure. This is Bertrand Rocher's The Medical Detectives. A friend of mine texted me while I was at Powell's and suggested that I look for this. It's actually a series of nonfiction medical essays and is said to be the basis for the show House MD. Horror author one-off here, the complete John Silence stories by Algernon Blackwood, is a guy who, believe it or not, I haven't actually read yet. Follow this up with a whole bunch of Lord Dunsany. I got, this is another Dover edition, as you can see here. Dovers have the nice uniformity to them, and that they've all got, most of them at least have this white nondescript back. And then on the inside flap, they tell you about all the other Dover stuff you should be buying. And so that's Sword of Welleran. And also on the small side, The Charwoman's Shadow. And on the larger side here, we've got a Penguin Classic Edition in the Land of Time and Other Fantasies. Lord Dunsany, like some of these other people, was an inspiration for Lovecraft, and that's part of why I started to read him. He's actually very rewarding of his own merits. For Robert E. Howard, I've got The Moon of Skulls here, a nice thin one. This is a Time Lost series from Centaur Press. I've actually read another book in this series. That one had ridiculously tiny font in it. This one does not have that problem, so that's a plus. They all kind of look like this on the back, where they're brown, and on the bottom, they tell you about the other things you can read. The Pathless Trail, the first one listed there by Arthur O'Friel, is the one that I read. It's very dry, very fact-based, very boring. And the other Robert E. Howard I got is one of his westerns, The Vultures, which I think I may actually own in another form, but it's always nice to have more Howard around. In Powell's, near the science fiction section, they have this spinner thing where you can get really weird, rare, and funny-looking, sometimes really cool-looking books. This is a Zane Grey's Western magazine, which I got for a song, basically, that was on that rack. And there was also this, America's Secret Service Ace by Nick Carr. It turns out, actually, to be a 70s zine. You can see it has actually typewriter type font in it. It's about something called Operator 5. It's not really what I expected. I'll admit I didn't look too closely while I was in the store. Probably should have, but I was sort of in a frenzy. Inevitably, we have Sax Rohmer. On my last 3 trips to Powell's, I've been buying lots and lots of Sax Rohmer because I really like the early Fu Manchu books. This is one of the later ones. I think this is number 7 in the series. I'll admit right now the ones from the 30s are not very good. I'm hoping there's some improvement there. Most likely not, though. Series is kind of tend to degrade and don't come back. This is one of the ones printed in-store. They charge a little bit more for these, but this is another Sax Rohmer Batwing. This, you probably cannot read the old hardback cover from here. It presents itself as a Masterpieces of Oriental Mystery series by Sax Rohmer. It's called She Who Sleeps. I know nothing at all about it. However, things I know about Rohmer is that he's obsessed with, like, romanticizing, fictional Oriental tales and Egyptian, things and stuff like that, and doing his bizarro romances and mysteries. So wherever it falls in the spectrum of what he does, I'm sure it'll be well worth it. Okay, a little bit random now. I found Jack Vance's The Dying Earth. There have been many editions of this. I've found a lot of Jack Vance books in my used bookstore travels. I've never actually found this one, which was the only one I actually wanted to read. And believe it or not, it was just sitting right there on the Bizarro spinner thing there in the science fiction section, and they got it for a song. Online, they usually want more than that for it. Another one-off. This is a Donald Hamilton book. Donald Hamilton created the Matt Helm series, and this one's called Assassins Have Starry Eyes, or as you can see there, the original title appears to be Assignment Murder. Yeah, I know nothing about that either, but I read the first Matt Helm book this year, and it was pretty excellent. There's another one I know very little about. Valentine Timlet's Twilight of the Serpent. I think one of my Goodreads friends reviewed that. Looks like it might be something I can stomach. It is a British printing, by the way. It's Corgi, you know. These tend to be sized a little bit differently. And dead giveaway usually is that when the price is on them, it's listed in pounds sterling. Lynn Carter book, who I'll admit right now, Lynn Carter is a terrible author. I think I might only keep reading him so I can write bad reviews of his stuff, because it just keeps finding new and better ways to be terrible. This is Mad Empress of Callisto. This is the 4th book in the Callisto series. There are 8 of these. I read the first book this year. I regretted it, but I guess I'm sort of a completist at this point. This is an ace double. If you haven't seen these, expose yourself to them immediately. It's one book on one side and another book on the other. They flip in the middle. The Puzzle Planet by Robert A.W. Lowndes. And the other one, The Angry Espers, by Lloyd Biggle Jr. These are 2 authors who I've never collected previously. More one-offs found at the last minute. The best of Stanley G. Weinbaum, who came to fame in the 30s with something called The Martian Odyssey. He's better than Ray Bradbury, at least. This particular one, somebody tried to set it on fire at some point, or it got a little scorched. You can see there on the back. This is an author who was an influence on Robert E. Howard. This is Talbot Mundy. Looks like it's called Ohm, The Secret of Arbor Valley. It's old, it looks crazy, fanciful. I think this is another 60s or 70s printing. So we may not be able to tell from the jacket there, but I'm sure that's some prime stuff. On the older end of things, we have The Well at World's End, Volume 2 by William Morris. William Morris was a seminal science fiction author who also designed wallpapers and furniture. And was one of those awesome 19th century socialists, kind of like H.G. Wells. This one has an introduction by Lynn Carter, you'll see there, because the best thing Lynn Carter did was edit and represent authors who were way better than himself. Found a Mary Roberts Reinert, Alibi for Isabel. Mary Roberts Reinert was known for a little while as the American Agatha Christie. Even though she predates Agatha Christie, she was a very prolific female 20th century mystery author. Probably the best significance for her today is that she wrote the play The Bat, which was adapted to the films The Bat and The Bat Whispers in the late 20s and early 30s, which were some of the things that helped inspire Batman later on. You know, that didn't happen until 39. And a book in the Perry Rodan series. I've been getting these little by little. This is number 16, The Secret Barrier X. Credited author is W.W. Scholes, although I think they're all written by 2 guys. Neither of them is named that. You know, nom de plume and all that. Alright, probably most important to me anyway, are the fact that they had some of the Shadow series. Walter B. Gibson writing is Maxwell Grant. Most of the printings of them, most of these are from the 60s and 70s, will just say Maxwell Grant, the pen name. But oddly enough, all the ones I picked up credit Walter B. Gibson, which is different, to say the least. So that one's Grove of Doom. This one's The Creeping Death. These claim... See, that one's not numbered, at least on the cover. This one claims to be number 14. Each publishing entity that reprinted these did their own numbering system. So none of them are actually in the publication order. If you look on Wikipedia, you will actually find the order they were originally published in back in the 30s and 40s. That's the order I've been reading them in. And they get these large-size pulp reprints that I've been doing more recently. See, this is the Murder Master and the Hydra. These are neat because they preserve the formatting and the interior illustrations of the actual pulp magazines as they appeared. Difference being there's 2 in each. I've got a few of these now. And I found something that was like that, but a little bit different. This one is actually, believe it or not, a Dover edition, which does the same thing. It has two of the stories. This one, the Crime Oracle and Teeth of the Dragon. And so, like your typical Dover edition, it's white on the back, and it's got all this business, and it's got all the stuff on the inside page that tells you that there's further reading and purchasing. If you ever purchase, or even just thumb through any Dover editions, I really highly recommend that after you finish reading or before, you take a look through the stuff at the end there, because they'll give you just really, really random lists of books that they happen to also put out. And even if it's something that you would never read in your life, it's like, well, that exists. That's interesting. So in total, I purchased 33 books over the course of my travels at Powell's this time. I've only shown you 31 because 2 of them are potential gifts. But yeah, no, that was quite the adventure. What you just saw there was basically $260 worth of books. Well worth it. If you go to Powell's City of Books, whatever you do, don't go on a Friday or Saturday like I did this time, because it is crowded as sin.